Good morning, dear student. In last period, we learned the parts of the plant, parts of the flower. Sorry. We know that flower has mainly four parts. These are sepals, petals, pistil, and stamens. We also know that stamens are male reproductive part of the flower and pistils are female reproductive part of the flower. Pistil produce female gamete and stamen produce male gamete. We also learn the parts of stamen and pistil. You see the figure of stamen and pistil on the board. This is stamen. The upper top part of the stamen is called anther. In anther, powdery material which is called a pollen grain. These pollen grain contain male gamete and lower part, filamental like part is called filament. So this is the structure of a stamen. You see, we saw a model of flower and also in this model we saw the anther and pistil. So this is stamen, this is anther. In the anther, it has a pollen grain. Pollen grain contain male gamete. Therefore, stamen produce male gamete. And the anther, this is filament. Like this, under part of the flower is a pistil. Pistil has a bottom broad part which called ovary. In the ovary there are ovules. Ovules contain female gamete. This is the tubular structure in the middle of pistil is called style, and the top of the pistil is a stigma. So these are the main part of the flower. In addition to this, flower has petals and sepals also. Petals attract the insect for the pollination and sepals protect the flower at the stage of bud. So these are the main part of the flower. Now some plant has either pistil or stamen in the flower. This type of flower are called unisexual flower. So what is unisexual flower? The flower which contain either only pistil or only stamens are called unisexual flower. If this flower contain only pistil, then it is unisexual flower. In addition to pistil, it contains all the other parts like petals and sepals, but it has no stamen. Only one reproductive part, that is pistil, is present in the flower. Therefore, it is called unisexual flower. Another possibility is flower not contain pistil, it only contain stamens, then it is also a unisexual flower. Therefore, unisexual flower is nothing but flower which contain either pistil or stamens are called unisexual flower. For example, some plants like corn, papaya and cucumber produce unisexual flower. In the plant of corn, papaya and cucumber, in one plant, if the flower contains only a pistil, some flower contains only a stamen. Therefore, in the same plant, both type of flower which contain either pistil or stamens is present. Therefore, it is called unisexual flower. It is also possible that some plants produce only flower which contain only male reproductive part, that is stamen, and some plant which produce only female reproductive part, that is produce unisexual flower which contain only a female reproductive part, which is pistil. Therefore, unisexual flower is a flower which contains either only pistil or only stamen. For example, the flower of corn, cucumber and papaya are of unisexual flower. On the other hand, some flower contain both pistil as well as stamen. Then it is said bisexual flower. So bisexual flower is nothing but flower which contain both stamen and pistil are called bisexual flower. For example of the bisexual flower, we have many plants which produce bisexual flower. Example of rose flower is bisexual, petunia flower and mustard flower are bisexual flower. Majority plant are produce bisexual flower. So this is the two type of flower, unisexual flower and bisexual flower. Now you can write the difference between unisexual flower and bisexual flower with example. Now pollination. We learned that pollen produced on the anther of the stamen which contain male gamete and ovule produced in the ovary which contain female gamete. So in the stamen, top of the stamen, there is a anther which produce a pollen grain. And pollen grain contain male gamete. These male gamete, if it success to reach at the female gamete which is in the ovary and ovule, then the fertilization takes place and new plants are formed. But question is there, how the male gamete, it means pollen, transfer from the anther to the ovary. So transfer of anther to the pistil through the means by wind, water, insect, etc. Because pollens are sticky, it sticks on the body of insect or birds which sit on the flower. And again this insect or birds sit on another flower of the same flower. It sticks on the stigma of the pistil. Stigma is uppermost part of the pistil. The middle portion of the pistil is tubular shape and is known as type. And lower broad portion of the pistil is called ovary. In the ovary, there are ovules in the ovary, which contain female gametes. Now, transfer of pollen from the anther of stamen to the stigma of the pistil is called pollination. So, pollination is transfer of pollen from stamen to pistil. The transfer of pollen from anther of the stamen to the stigma of the pistil of a flower is called pollination. This is the definition of pollination. Pollination are of two types. First one is self-pollination and another type is cross-pollination. Now, what is self-pollination? So we have two figures on the blackboard and two diagrams of the plants are drawn in the figure. In first figure, you see that this is the flower and the part of flower is this is pistil, this is stamen. This is stamen. This is petals like that. If the pollen of the stamen is transferred to the stigma of the pistil in the same flower, then it is called self-pollination. Or if the pollen of the stamen is transferred in the another flower of the same plant, then it is also called a self-pollination. Therefore, self-pollination is if the pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or on the flower of the same plant. It is called self-pollination. This plant is self. Pollen grain is transferred from the stigma of the different flower of the same plant. Then it is also called a self-pollination. Second type of pollination is cross-pollination. In cross-pollination, if the pollen grain of the stamen from the anther is transferred from one flower to the another flower of the same kind of different plant, then it is called cross-pollination. So, if the pollen grain of this stamen of the anther is transferred to this stigma of the pistil of the same kind different plant, then it is called a cross-pollination. So, what is cross-pollination? If the pollen of a flower lands on the stigma of a flower of a different plant of the same kind, it is called cross-pollination. Therefore, pollination are of two types: self-pollination or cross-pollination. So, the seeds produced by the cross-pollinations are of different, better type and good quality. So, you also learn the difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination. So, today we learn type of flower, pollination and type of pollination. Thank you.